Lieutenant Colonel Karen Mitchell died on a Tuesday at 16:47 hours, exactly 3 weeks after she'd been accused of the worst thing a military nurse could do. But that's getting ahead of the story. The story really began 4 months earlier, when Karen walked into the intensive care unit at Naval Hospital Bremerton and saw the patient at bed 7, Master Chief Petty Officer Robert Callahan, 52 years old, 30 years of service, decorated SEAL, currently dying from stage 4 pancreatic cancer that had spread to his liver, lungs, and spine. Karen had seen a lot of death in her 20 years as a Navy nurse. She'd held the hands of young sailors who'd never see their 21st birthdays. She'd watched Marines slip away calling for mothers who'd never hear them again. She'd learned to compartmentalize grief, to stay professional, to do her job without falling apart. But there was something about Callahan that got under her skin. Maybe it was the way he never complained, even though his pain levels had to be excruciating. Maybe it was how he apologized every time he needed help, as if being sick was somehow his fault. Maybe it was the fact that he was completely alone, no wife, no kids, no family visiting, just a career military man dying in a hospital bed with nothing but his medals and his service record to show for 30 years of sacrifice. Karen started spending extra time in his room, adjusting his pillows, bringing him better food from the cafeteria, sitting with him during her breaks, listening to his stories about missions he couldn't fully describe and places he'd been that weren't on any map. "You don't have to do this," Callahan said one afternoon, his voice weak. "I know you have other patients. Other patients don't tell stories about sneaking into enemy territory disguised as a goat herder," Karen said, making him laugh then grimace as the movement triggered his pain. She immediately checked his medication pump. He was due for another dose in 30 minutes, but his pain levels were clearly spiking. "I can give you an early dose," she offered. "You're showing breakthrough pain. I can wait." Callahan's jaw was clenched. "Don't want to get ahead of schedule. Chief, pain management isn't a moral failing. If you're in pain, we treat it." Not arguing with the nurse, he said. But he also didn't say yes. Karen had seen this before. Career military, especially the old-school guys like Callahan, often refused pain medication beyond the absolute minimum, saw it as weakness, saw asking for help as somehow dishonorable. She made an executive decision. "I'm documenting breakthrough pain and administering medication per protocol. This isn't optional." She gave him the dose, watched his face slowly relax as the medication took effect. "Thank you," he whispered. I don't want to become one of those patients, the ones who get addicted, the ones who abuse the system." "Chief, you have stage 4 cancer. There's no abusing the system here. There's just managing your pain so you can have quality of life in the time you have left." Something in his face shifted. "How much time do I have left?" Karen had learned in 20 years that you never lied about death. "Weeks, maybe a month if we're lucky." Callahan nodded slowly. "Then, I need to tell you something. Something I haven't told anyone. Something I probably should have said months ago. You can tell me anything. There was a mission. 7 years ago, Afghanistan. My team was tasked with extracting a high-value target." His eyes were distant. "It went bad. Really bad. Civilians got caught in the crossfire. Kids." Karen kept her face neutral. "Go on." "The official report says we followed protocol. Says the civilians were enemy combatants. Says everything we did was by the book." Callahan's voice dropped. "It's all lies. We killed innocents, and command covered it up to protect the operation." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I'm dying. Because I've carried this for 7 years and I can't take it to my grave. Because someone needs to know the truth." His hand gripped hers. "I have documents, proof, photos we weren't supposed to take, witness statements we were ordered to destroy. It's all in a safety deposit box. If I give you the key, if I give you access, will you make sure the truth comes out?" Karen felt her heart hammering. This wasn't just a dying confession. This was asking her to become a whistleblower on a classified military operation. "Chief, there are proper channels for this. Inspector General, Congress, he should." "I tried. 6 months ago when I got diagnosed. Went to the IG. They told me my claims were unsubstantiated and that pursuing them would result in loss of benefits and possible court-martial." His grip tightened. "They threatened me. Said if I kept talking, they'd make sure I died dishonorably. Said my 30 years of service would be erased." "So you stopped." "So I got smart. I documented everything, made copies, created a paper trail they can't destroy. But I need someone on the outside. someone they can't threaten with loss of benefits because they're not the one making the claims. He met her eyes. Someone people will believe because she's spent 20 years earning trust. Karen sat back. You want me to release your evidence after you die? I want you to make sure those kids' families know the truth. I want the world to know what really happened. I want someone held accountable. Callahan's voice cracked. I want to die knowing I finally did the right thing. Karen thought about proper channels, about chain of command, about the rules she'd followed for 20 years. And then she thought about kids killed in crossfire, and families told lies, and good men forced to carry terrible secrets to their graves. Give me the key, she said. Over the next 3 weeks, Karen became Callahan's confidant. He told her everything about the mission call sign, Nightfall, conducted in a village near the Pakistan border. His team of 8 SEALs had gone in to extract a Taliban commander who supposedly had intel on American hostages. But the intel was bad. The compound they hit wasn't a Taliban safehouse. It was a wedding celebration. 12 civilians dead, 6 of them children. Command had made it disappear, reclassified the op, changed the after-action reports, threatened every member of the team with court-martial if they talked. How many of your team are still alive? Karen asked. 3, including me. Thompson died in a training accident 6 months after the mission. Anderson committed suicide 2 years later. Wilson, he's still in, still serving, won't talk about it, can't talk about it. What about the other 2? Davis got out, moved to Montana, drinks himself to sleep every night. And Martinez? Callahan's face darkened. Martinez went to the press, tried to expose it. They destroyed him. Dishonorable discharge, loss of all benefits, criminal charges for unauthorized disclosure of classified information. He's in prison now. Federer, 8 years. Karen felt cold. They sent a whistleblower to prison. They made an example of him, made sure everyone knew what happens when you break the silence. Callahan coughed, winced. That's why I need you. Because you're outside the chain of command. Because you're a nurse, not a combatant. Because people believe nurses, they'll still come after me. Maybe. But you're also a lieutenant colonel with 20 years of exemplary service. You have credibility. And you'll have my deathbed confession, my documents, and evidence that can't be disputed. He paused. Will you do it? Karen looked at this dying man who'd carried guilt for 7 years, who'd tried to do the right thing and been threatened into silence, who was using his final weeks to try to achieve some measure of redemption. I'll do it, she said, but you need to record a video statement. Full confession, names, dates, locations, everything. That way, it's your testimony, not mine. Callahan smiled. You're already thinking like a whistleblower. They spent the next week preparing. Karen brought her personal laptop, not connected to any military network. Callahan recorded 3 hours of testimony, detailed accounts of the mission, the cover-up, the threats. He gave her the safety deposit box key and the bank information. After I die, wait 2 weeks, Callahan instructed. Let them bury me with honors. Let my service record stay clean. Then release everything. Why wait? Because if you release it while I'm alive, they'll destroy my benefits. My VA death benefits go to a veterans charity I care about. If I die dishonorable, that charity gets nothing. His eyes were heavy. 2 weeks, that's all I'm asking. Let me die a hero, then expose the truth. Karen agreed. Master Chief Callahan died 3 days later, peacefully, surrounded by nurses who'd come to care about him. Karen held his hand in his final moments. At the funeral, she watched Navy brass eulogize him as a hero, watched them present a folded flag, watched them talk about service and sacrifice and honor, and she thought about 12 dead civilians whose families deserved the same honor. She waited the 2 weeks as promised. Then she went to the bank, opened the safety deposit box, and found exactly what Callahan had described. Photos, documents, after-action reports with handwritten changes, witness statements, and a USB drive containing Callahan's video confession. Karen made copies, encrypted everything, prepared to release it all to the press. She never got the chance. The morning she planned to send the evidence to journalists, 2 men in suits arrive at her door. Naval Criminal Investigative Service. Lieutenant Colonel Mitchell, you're under investigation for theft of controlled substances from Master Chief Callahan's pain medication supply. You're hereby suspended from duty pending the outcome of this investigation. Karen's world stopped. What? That's insane. I never... We have evidence that you diverted fentanyl from Callahan's drip during his final weeks of life. Multiple witnesses have come forward stating you had unusual access to his medications. I was his primary nurse. Of course I had access. We also have evidence that you've been in contact with journalists regarding classified military operations. That alone is grounds for court-martial. They knew. Somehow, they knew everything. Did you access a safety deposit box registered to Robert Callahan? One agent asked. Karen's silence was answer enough. Lieutenant Colonel, you're in serious trouble. Theft of controlled substances, unauthorized disclosure of classified information, conspiracy to commit espionage. You're looking at decades in prison. I didn't steal anything, and I haven't disclosed anything yet. The agent smiled without warmth. So you admit you have classified materials you plan to disclose? Karen realized she'd walked into a trap. I want a lawyer, of course. But just so you understand the situation, we can make this go away. The theft charges, the disclosure charges, all of it. You just need to return the materials you took from Callahan's safety deposit box and sign a statement that you will not discuss anything Callahan told you. And if I don't, then we prosecute to the fullest extent. Dishonorable discharge, prison time, loss of all benefits. Your 20 years of service erased. The agent leaned closer. You'll become exactly like Martinez. Another cautionary tale about what happens when people don't know their place. Karen thought about Callahan's final request, about those 12 dead civilians, about truth and justice and doing the right thing. I want my lawyer, she repeated. The investigation moved fast. Too fast. Within a week, they'd built a case showing that Karen had diverted enough fentanyl from Callahan's medication to account for a significant diversion. They had pharmacy records, witness statements, even video footage that supposedly showed her tampering with his fourth pump. All of it fabricated, all of it designed to destroy her credibility before she could release Callahan's evidence. Karen's lawyer was blunt. They're offering you a deal. Resign quietly, return the materials, sign an NDA, you keep your benefits, avoid prison, and walk away. And Callahan's story stays buried. Callahan's dead. You're not. Think about your future. Karen thought about it for exactly 5 seconds. No deal. We go to trial, and at trial, I present Callahan's evidence as part of my defense. Her lawyer's face went pale. Karen, that's suicide. They'll destroy you. Then they destroy me. But the truth gets out either way. The court-martial was scheduled for 6 weeks out. Karen spent that time preparing her defense and securing Callahan's evidence. She gave copies to 3 different lawyers, sent encrypted files to journalists with deadlines, and created a dead man's switch. If she didn't check in every 72 hours, everything would automatically release. They couldn't silence her now without the truth coming out, but they could still destroy her. The prosecution's case was devastatingly thorough. They showed pharmacy logs indicating missing medications. They presented video footage heavily edited, showing Karen near Callahan's pump. They brought in witnesses who testified about her unusual access to the patient. What they didn't show was the reason for that access. Karen had been Callahan's primary nurse, following standard protocols. What they didn't mention was that the missing medications matched exactly with legitimate pain management for a terminal cancer patient. What they couldn't explain was why none of these concerns had been raised until after Callahan's death. Karen's lawyer presented Callahan's video testimony as evidence. The judge allowed it barely. The courtroom watched as a dying SEAL confessed to participating in a massacre and cover-up. This is why they're prosecuting Lieutenant Colonel Mitchell, her lawyer argued, not because she stole anything, but because she has evidence of war crimes that powerful people want buried. The prosecution objected. Master Chief Callahan was dying and heavily medicated. His statements are not credible. This is a fantasy concocted by a confused dying man and seized upon by a nurse looking for attention. Then why prosecute her? The defense countered. If it's just fantasy, why not ignore it? The prosecutor's answer was chilling. Because Lieutenant Colonel Mitchell stole classified materials and conspired to disclose them. Even if the contents are false, the act of theft and disclosure is criminal. It was a perfect trap. Either Callahan's evidence was real, meaning Karen was right to expose it, or it was fake, meaning she'd still stolen classified materials. The verdict came back after 3 days of deliberation. Guilty on all charges. Dishonorable discharge. 5 years in military prison. Loss of all benefits. 20 years of service erased. Because she'd tried to honor a dying man's final request. Karen stood as they read the sentence, her face impassive. She'd known this was coming, had accepted it as the price of doing the right thing. But she'd also made sure the price meant something. As the military police approached to take her into custody, Karen spoke clearly for the courtroom record. I accept this verdict, but I want it known that the evidence Master Chief Robert Callahan provided me has been secured in multiple locations. If anything happens to me, if I die in custody, if I'm harmed, if I'm silenced, that evidence will be released automatically. The world will know about Operation Nightfall. The families of those 12 civilians will know the truth, and the officers who ordered the cover-up will be exposed. The judge Lieutenant Colonel Mitchell, you're in contempt. I'm already convicted, Karen said calmly. What more can you do to me? But you should know, Master Chief Callahan didn't just give me evidence. He gave me the names of every officer in his chain of command who knew about the massacre. He gave me the names of every person who participated in the cover-up. He gave me everything. She looked directly at the senior officers in the courtroom. And if I don't check in every 72 hours, journalists at the Washington Post, New York Times, and Military Times receive everything. Photos, documents, video testimony, all of it. The courtroom erupted. The judge ordered her removed. Military police led her away. Karen went to the brig at Naval Consolidated Brig. 5 years. She could survive 5 years if it meant the truth came out. She lasted 3 weeks. Karen died at 16:47 hours on a Tuesday afternoon. Official cause, suicide by hanging in her cell. The investigation was brief. Prison officials reported she'd been despondent, had stopped eating, had told other inmates she couldn't handle the shame of her conviction. Her body was found by a guard during routine rounds. No suspicious circumstances, no signs of foul play. Case closed. The Navy buried her quietly. No honors, no ceremony. A disgraced officer who'd died in disgrace, and that should have been the end of the story. Except Karen Mitchell had been smarter than they'd given her credit. 4. Her dead man's switch activated, encrypted. Files began arriving at newsrooms across the country. The Washington Post, New York Times, Military Times, ProPublica, The Guardian, all of them received the same package. Master Chief Robert Callahan's full video confession, 3 hours of testimony detailing Operation Nightfall, photos of dead children, after-action reports showing the cover-up, names of every officer involved, and a final video. Karen had recorded 3 days before her court-martial. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Karen Mitchell. If you're watching this, I'm dead. And if I'm dead, it means they didn't want the truth about Operation Nightfall to come out. They destroyed my career, they sent me to prison, and they probably killed me to keep me quiet. Karen's face on the screen was calm, resolved, but Master Chief Robert Callahan spent his final weeks making sure the truth couldn't be silenced. He documented everything. He trusted me to make sure his story was told, and I promised him that even if it cost me everything, those 12 civilians would not be forgotten. She paused. I don't know if I'm brave or stupid, but I know this. Some truths are worth dying for. Some stories need to be told, no matter the cost. And some promises need to be kept, even when keeping them destroys you. Master Chief Callahan died trying to do the right thing. I hope I've honored that. I hope those families get justice. I hope the officers who covered this up are held accountable. And I hope my death means something. The video ended. The story exploded. Front page of every major newspaper. Lead story on every news network. Congressional hearings announced. Department of Defense investigations launched. The Navy tried to contain it. Called Callahan's testimony unreliable. Called Karen a disgraced officer seeking attention. Called the evidence questionable. But then other members of Callahan's team came forward. Davis, the one drinking himself to death in Montana, gave a full interview confirming every detail. Wilson, still serving, resigned and testified before Congress. Even Martinez, the one serving 8 years in federal prison for trying to expose this years ago, was suddenly vindicated. His conviction was being reviewed, his dishonorable discharge challenged. The families of the 12 civilians killed in Operation Nightfall were found, given the truth, given apologies, given compensation from a government that had spent 7 years denying their loved ones ever existed, and Karen Mitchell's death was suddenly being questioned. Suicide. in military custody after threatening to expose war crimes. One journalist wrote, "That's not suspicious at all." The Naval Criminal Investigative Service opened an investigation into her death, found inconsistencies in the original reports, found evidence of tampering with security footage from her cell block, found testimony from inmates who said Karen had been afraid someone would kill her and make it look like suicide. Within 6 months, 3 guards were arrested for murder. Within a year, 5 senior officers were charged with conspiracy to cover up war crimes, and Lieutenant Colonel Karen Mitchell's dishonorable discharge was posthumously overturned, her rank restored, her benefits reinstated, her service record cleared. She was buried again, this time at Arlington National Cemetery with full military honors. The memorial service was small but packed. News crews, veterans groups, human rights organizations, and a handful of people Karen had never met but who owed her everything. Davis stood at the podium, sober for the first time in years. Karen Mitchell died for a promise she made to a dying man. He said, "She didn't have to. She could have walked away, could have kept her career, her benefits, her life, but she chose to honor Chief Callahan's final request, and that choice cost her everything." He paused, composed himself. "But it also gave us back our honor. Wilson and I lived 7 years, carrying guilt we couldn't speak about. Martinez spent years in prison for trying to tell the truth. And Chief Callahan died knowing his final mission, telling the truth, would probably destroy the person he asked to help him. Karen knew the cost. She knew they'd destroy her. She knew they might kill her, and she did it anyway." Wilson stepped up, his voice breaking. "They called her a thief, a traitor, a disgrace. They stripped her rank, her freedom, her life, but they couldn't strip the truth. They couldn't strip her honor, and they couldn't strip the justice she won for 12 innocent people." Martinez was there, released from prison when his conviction was overturned. He placed a photo at Karen's headstone, picture of the 12 civilians killed in Operation Nightfall. "Their names are known now because of you," he whispered. "Their families have truth because of you. We have redemption because of you." The service ended. People placed flowers on her grave. Journalists took photos. Veterans saluted. And in the distance, a woman watched from behind dark sunglasses. Late 50s, dignified bearing. She'd been at every hearing, every press conference, every moment of Karen's vindication. No one knew who she was. No one asked. She was one of the 3 lawyers Karen had given evidence to before the court-martial, one of the people who'd received the encrypted files. One of the reasons the dead man's switch had worked so perfectly. Karen had been smart, had protected herself even knowing she wouldn't survive. Because the measure of courage isn't whether you live through it, it's whether the truth survives you. The woman placed a single white rose on Karen's grave, whispered, "You kept the promise. He would be proud." Then she walked away, leaving behind a memorial to a nurse who died for doing the right thing. The Navy Medical Training Center in San Antonio has a lecture hall named for Lieutenant Colonel Karen Mitchell. Every nursing student who passes through learns her story as part of their ethics training. They learn about a nurse who made a promise to a dying patient, about a woman who chose truth over safety, about someone who knew the cost of doing right and paid it anyway. They learn that Karen Mitchell died in custody at age 43, that she was murdered for trying to expose war crimes, that she was posthumously vindicated and buried with honors she'd been denied in life. And they learn the most important lesson. Sometimes being a nurse means more than treating injuries. Sometimes it means bearing witness. Sometimes it means keeping promises, even when keeping them kills you. Master Chief Robert Callahan's name is on a memorial wall at Naval Special Warfare Command. Below it, a plaque reads, "He told the truth. She made sure the world heard it." Together, they honored the fallen. Operation Nightfall is now taught as a case study in military ethics courses, a cautionary tale about cover-ups and the courage required to expose them. The 12 civilians killed that night have a memorial in Afghanistan, paid for by the US government. Their families received apologies, compensation, and most importantly, truth. And every year on the anniversary of Karen Mitchell's death, someone no one knows who places white roses on her grave at Arlington. 12 roses, one for each life she helped vindicate. Karen Mitchell spent 20 years saving lives in military medicine. She spent her final weeks trying to give voice to the dead. She paid for that choice with her career, her freedom, and ultimately her life. But the truth survived her, and sometimes that's all the victory anyone can ask for.